Well, welcome to a new video. It's this time different. It's a book review. I'm doing a book review on a book that's highly impressed me. It's the only one I've ever done and maybe the only one I will do. And the book is called When History Had Other Plans. And the basic theme of the book is that no matter how you socially engineer, whether it be Hitler, whether it be Stalin, whether it be our government, no matter how you try to socially engineer, history comes along and normally changes the objective, actually changes the result. You never seem to get the result you want. Often you get the opposite. So in this book, there are so many chapters ranging across world wars, politics, economics, feminism, climate, you name it, and it's all about that. And things like restricting nuclear weapons spreads them. The West encouraged Putin by discouraging him. Raising the minimum wage lowers the income. How attempts to prevent World War II made it happen. Stalin lost because he prepared too well. That's a really good one to start with. How the Soviet Union was so better armed than Germany, and it still lost. And it lost because it was so better armed, had so many more tanks and aircraft. That's why it lost. That may seem contradictory. In this book, you find out. Now, all I can do in the interview is cover the tops of the subjects, and not all the subjects even, to give you a flavour of what's in this book. I couldn't recommend it more highly. It'd be a great, great read for a gift, for a birthday or Christmas or any event like that, or anyone who wants to read it. I'll put a link to the Amazon link to it in underneath this, so you could, if you want to, you can order it straight away, because it's worth ordering straight away. So with that, I'll start the review. Welcome to my first book review. Well, welcome everybody. This is a very interesting video for me because it's my first book review, as it were, and I was invited to look at one chapter in this book to do with climate change, which is fairly obvious why I'd be asked to do that. And normally when I read these things from non-specialists, they get it half right. But this chapter got it all right. But the approach also to the whole subject was different and refreshing. And so I asked to see the rest of it, and I was sent an early copy of the book, When History Had Other Plans, which is, I think, a fantastic title. And I'm a student of the Second World War. I'm a student of the two World Wars, actually. And I was born, actually, in the Second World War, towards the end of it, in 1945, in January. So it really does interest me, and the book starts with that, but it goes through everything. It goes through climate, it goes through economics, it goes through, the validity of a minimum wage, it goes through sexism, you name it. This book deals with it, and what it does is it deals with it in a totally refreshing way. Now, with books like this, I don't normally like them. And the reason I don't like them is because they're full of fluff, what I call fluff. It takes you a long time to get down to the actual issue. Not so in this book. It's there, bang, 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 right to the issue. And that makes it very easy reading. And on top of that, at the end of each chapter is all the information to back up what's being claimed. Because what is being claimed may surprise some people. So I'd now like to introduce you to the author, whose name I'm having trouble pronouncing. I'm sorry for that. Val Viva. So hello.
Hello, Paul. My name is Vladislav Bogorov, but please just call me Vlad with a V.
Val. Okay.
Vlad. V-L...
V-L...
V-L-A-D. Vlad.
Oh, Val. Vlad. Right. Okay, got that. So, first of all, who are you?
I'm the only certified welder who has won 4 cases before the European Court of Human Rights.
So you're a lawyer then?
I used to be a lawyer. I was a lawyer for 17 years.
I see. So what... And apparently, I found out we had a previous Zoom call. You've been in the UK about 9 years, yeah?
More like 10 now.
Pardon, more like 10, right? And all I can say is welcome, because I wish we could have more people like you in the UK with that intelligence to write such a book. This is one of the best books I've read in absolute years. In fact, I can't think of a better book for me. for me, because I can't stand books I read when it takes a long time to get to the point. And this book makes you think. So can we just go through the width of the scope you've covered in the book first? What subjects have you covered? Just
Well, actually, it boils down to only one subject. Every time you try to engineer society, it always fails. It always backfires. That's the main thing that goes through all the chapters.
right.
So that's that's a book about social engineering, although the phrase social engineering is not even used in the book.
Yeah.
To explain what it means briefly, engineering is the use of natural sciences in order to design things, say railroad bridges.
Yes.
And social engineering is the arrogant idea that you could design a society like a railroad bridge. It never works. While engineering is a real science, social engineering is a pseudoscience. Just like physics, chemistry, all the natural sciences are real sciences, and the social sciences are, I would say, pseudosciences. And
But
by the way, I'm speaking as somebody who has a master's degree in a social science.
yes.
Uh,
So, can
Wonderful.
I just say that I don't think that does the book justice, what you've just said, because there are shocking, the book makes you think. The book makes you think. So I'll start off with, I mean, right early on, you point out that whilst the Holocaust, the Holocaust by Hitler was really, really a terrible thing, and we all agree on that, and don't want to diminish that in any way. But it seems to have been forgotten that there was an actual bigger one against Ukraine by Stalin. And instead of 6 million, it was 7 million. And the details in your book, which I'm not going to reveal really because they're horrific of what happened. I mean, truly, truly horrific what happened with the cannibalism and so on in the starvation of that 7 million people. But the point the book makes, you're making the point that this is sort of ignored. There's a sort of two-way thing with balancing the world. And what your book does is tend to balance it back to a more even keel. That's what I found. And that's what I loved about it right from the start. And it's full of factual information, full of it. So um, if you even go back, and it does deal with the Second World War, it deals with feminism. Yeah, it deals with minimum wages and economics. Yes, it deals with all sorts of things where you're not getting the result of what you aim for. That's the basic theme you've outlined. So,
Yeah.
um, uh, um, if we just cover, I want to give some indications of the book to entice people to read it, because that's what I want. I think everyone should read this book. And so, if we look at the claim you make, I mean, this is an amazing claim for me. And I've studied the Second World War, and I'd already concluded that if Hitler had been kind to the people and not treated them as second-class humans, as it were, he probably would have won against Russia. Yes, but so I've always had that feeling. But what I didn't know was Russia was so well armed, much superior number of aeroplanes, tanks, everything compared to Germany when they attacked. Yes.
Yes, paradoxically, this is why the Soviet Union almost lost the war because it was too well armed.
So explain that in a nutshell.
It's very simple. This staggering superiority in armament in industry over Germany was achieved at the expense of the Soviet people. So we usually tend to treat World War II, the conflict between Germany and the Soviet Union, and say the collectivization when 7 million Ukrainians were starved to death. They were not so just Ukrainians, but mostly they were Ukrainians. We treat them as two separate events. Actually, they were part of the same thing. So the Soviet Union achieved its staggering superiority in terms of armament over Germany because it treated its own citizens so poorly.
So
It,
what you
it,
mean is it traded flesh in effect for arm.
yes,
It traded
yes,
people for armament.
yes. I actually use the phrase "turning corpses into tanks."
I see. So I mean, by just well, give me an example of how it badly treated the people. Explain that. Wasn't it meant to be a people's mecca?
Socialism is not meant to benefit the people. Socialism is meant to benefit the power-hungry people who are in charge. It's
Right.
like any social movement.
Yes.
These social movements are never aimed at achieving what they say they will achieve. Just like environmentalism is not about the environment,
Yes.
and feminism is not about the rights of women, so
Yes.
socialism is not about the rights of the workers. This is what they say, but they actually achieve the opposite. And under socialism, more people were enslaved than under any other system, literally enslaved in concentration camps.
I see.
But back to what happened in 1941. So when the Germans invaded first, I say first because the Soviet Union was preparing an invasion shortly after. When the Germans invaded first, the Soviet people hated their own government. And there was this massive anti-communist uprising in 1941, which led to the disintegration of large parts of the Soviet Union. So the Germans were not so much winning, they were feeling a void. Half of the Red Army surrendered to the Germans, hoping to fight their own government, and the other half deserted. So the Ukrainians, the Russians, even the Poles, the Kazakhs, they preferred to fight their own government, and they met Hitler as a liberator initially, until they understood that Hitler is no better than Stalin. But at first they didn't know that, and all this happened precisely because the way they were treated during the collectivization and the industrialization of the Soviet Union, and they were treated this way so that the Soviet Union may prepare for war. So the fact that the Soviet Union achieved this staggering superiority in weaponry actually was the reason the Soviet Union lost in 1941.
I see.
I mean, it's a paradoxical development, but here this is the point of the book.
Yes.
The history doesn't care about our ideas, doesn't care
Okay.
about our plans. History always has other plans, and always something unexpected happens, and our plans backfire.
That's right. So I'm going to swap from that. I'm trying to give a taste in this interview of what the book covers. So we've dealt with a bit of the war there. Okay. I mean, the book covers a whole pile of political subjects to do with the wars and the Soviet Revolution, various other things, and the two-way standard in which the world views things. So one side can get away with absolute terrible things and not be criticised, and so on. Okay, so your book covers a whole range of subjects which are fascinating. I mean, most people don't realize, and I didn't realize how well the Soviets were prepared for the war. And in effect, their actions on their own public in trading humans for armaments before is what cost them. They were so well prepared. And you go into why they were ready to attack as well, and things like this, which a lot of people don't know. So there's lots of things people don't know throughout the book, which can change their perspective of history. It can change of it. But I'm going to swap now from that subject of the wars, and it covers a whole range of subjects. We can't do just this in this small interview. I'm going to now talk about the minimum wage, where you say your claim is there's chapters like this with headings the minimum wage basically lowers the wages of the poorest. So please explain that. You'd think it'd be the opposite.
Well, it's not the opposite, considering that getting the minimum wage up leads to unemployment, and if somebody is unemployed, his wage is zero. So the more you increase the minimum wage, the more people get zero. That's the gist of it.
Yes. I mean, I've always understood that, by the way, and I've actually run my own business for many, many years. I was managing director and employing a lot of people. And the last thing any employer wants to do is get rid of good people. Yeah. And the best thing every employer wants to do for their own sake is keep good people and make sure you don't lose them. Yes. So there's that balance all the time. if someone is not worth it in the end, there's no choice because you're going to become uncompetitive if you don't act any other way. And
Yes.
that's how the whole society's built. So it was an issue I was in total agreement before I read the chapter in my case, but it will shock lots of people. And you go into detail on this. So, not happy with just dealing with economics like that. We'll deal with feminism. Let's move on to feminism. How feminism has you go into the book about feminism. Tell me about your views on that.
Well, it's not matter of views. It's another thing that is could be factually verified and which is very simple. And it is that feminism lowers birth rates in the West, and the West is the only society where women have rights. So eventually, the immigrants in the West who have more children will inherit the West.
Hmm, simple as that.
Yes, that's all there is to it. It's very simple.
Right.
It's again unintended consequences. I mean,
Always.
minimum wage, feminism, all these movements, they are not about the they never benefit those they claim they would benefit. See, the politicians say that if they increase the minimum wage, this is good for the workers. No, it's good for the politicians
Yeah,
because they make a career out of it. It's never
correct.
good for those who are supposed to benefit. Just like feminism is never good for the women. Just like aid for Africa is not good for the Africans.
Hmm.
Or
What are
just like environmentalism is not good for the environment.
correct? One
All
of
of
the
these.
things we'll move on to that. One of the things I found was that minimum wage doesn't just raise the minimum wage, it raises all the wages. You have to keep the differentials to some extent. So it can have an effect. It phases out as you rise up, it sort of dampens out, but it does lift a whole sector and it can make you more inefficient compared to competitors overseas and so on. So that's that. Okay, let's come on to why you contacted me to begin with the environment and CO2, etc. Now, everyone, and you're going out on basically my channel on YouTube, and my channel is mainly, it's sometimes about freedom of speech, but mainly it's about environmentalism, and I'm a retired chartered environmental engineer is one of the things I did, and I was amazed to read your chapter because I really was when I started to read it because you're a lawyer or that background. I was expecting the normal mistakes, but no, your mind cut through to the issues perfectly. So tell me your views on how environmental is making the environment worse.
Like I said, all these movements never aim at achieving what they claim to achieve. Because when you think of it, if they achieve it, they will be out of business. If the environmentalists ever solve the environmental problems, they will be redundant. So, like George Orwell said about the war in 1984, the goal of the war is not to be won. The goal of the war is to be everlasting. So they need to approach this problem with the greenhouse house gases so that the solution will never come, but seeking the solution will be everlasting. And this is why this explains their contradictory position. So the only way to achieve, possibly from the point of view of physics, but also from economic point of view and political point of view, net zero, would be to use nuclear. But they're against nuclear. And this doesn't make sense from the point of view of environmentalism, but from the point of view, sorry, of the environment. But it makes perfect sense from the if we consider the interest of the environmentalist movement, because nuclear would solve the issue, and they will be redundant, they will be out of business. So they need to solve the issue in such a way that it will never be solved. But at the same time, they need to continue solving it because they obtain power and influence in the process. So environmentalism is not about the environment, it's about certain people who claim they're fighting for the environment.
Why are they doing it though? Why are they doing it?
They're obtaining power, influence, money,
Control.
control, yes.
It's all about control.
Yes, all of these movements are like this.
Look.
The woke movement is like this. The
Are there
political.
any other chapters you'd like to, any other topics you'd like to deal with before we carry on?
Actually, I would like to make some more parallels.
Yes,
Socialism and National Socialism were like this.
yes,
For example, when they describe, an author described how Hitler's speeches were constructed during the 20s and the 30s. They had the same structure every time.
yes,
So they would typically consist of three parts. First part, the situation is bad. So there is big inflation. We were treated badly. The Versailles Treaty, all that. Part second, what is the solution? And he leads the listeners that there is only one solution. And then who could achieve this solution? And he leads the listeners to the conclusion that he is the only one to achieve this solution. And when you think of it, all these social engineering movements basically go through the same through the same phrases. They identify or invent a problem so that they could come as the only saviors and they could obtain power in the process. So basically, what's the gist of Hitler's speeches? Give me power to help you. And
mm,
this is basically what all social engineers ever say. This is what Lenin said. This is what the environmentalists say today. The work today, they want power to solve some issue, supposedly. They're the only saviors of this imaginary or real issue.
I actually have a video of an aerial shot of a sheep flock, and it had 7 sheepdogs controlling the flock through a gate. And I put down all the different controls of the environmental movement around the flock and said it's all about control. And that's what it's about in the end, power and control. And your chapter on that, which goes into some detail, but continually through the book, you're learning. Continually through the book, what the book does to me is crystallize a lot of issues. It crystallizes that basic theme, and I think the book is absolutely brilliant. I think it should be on everyone's shelf. I think it's an ideal birthday or Christmas gift for people on my side of the fence, as it were, on our side of the fence. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So before we conclude, I mean, are there any? I mean, we have only covered just some of the chapters in the book here. Just going through the chapter headings. Um, Feminism to end female rights. The West encouraged Putin by discouraging him. Restricting nuclear weapons spreads them. The more you give them, the less they have. And um, and that's that. It's about foreign aid. You do a tremendously good chapter on foreign aid, which doesn't achieve its its declared objectives. Yes, because
Yeah,
the UK at the moment is giving away 12.6 billion a year on just green foreign aid, which I've always argued does a lot of harm to the countries it goes to. And you do a whole chapter on that. You're going on about the minimum wage. Less rape jokes, more rape. That's another heading. You know, the contradiction, um, and so on. Freeing workers enslaved them. Attempts to prevent World War II made it happen, and so on. It's an incredible book and almost essential reading for anyone with a brain, I think. So I'd like to congratulate you on it because it is absolutely brilliant. I really is. I can't think of a better book I've read, and I don't have to plow through it. It flows. It goes. It gives you a fact, another fact, another fact. Same theme as you said. But a fact, and fact. Just look at it again. Just look at this issue again. Just look at that issue again with that same theme. When history had other plans, history got in the way. Absolutely brilliant, and I really do thank you both for doing for writing this, and I will do all I can to promote it. Okay,
thank
that's
you
all
for
I can do.
appreciating it. Thank you, Paul.
That's all I can do because you're a breath of fresh air. That's all I can say on that. And so again, thank you very much for giving me the time, giving the my public the time to experience this. Thank you.
Paul.